A pre-game backline reshuffle didn't phase the Dragons, and they made Leinster work really hard for the victory. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Dragons actually looked pretty good in this one early on. A couple of attacking lineouts, giving them good time in and around that Leinster 22. Jimmy O'Brien tap tackle on Ewan Rosser. Really important intervention, because Dragons, they were out there, not too far, maybe about 10, 15 metres out from the line. They had space and men out wide as well, but he just about got back, got that tap tackle, and, looking at it, you wouldn't say it was a try saver, but it was certainly cut out any chance of them getting over. Whether Leinster still would have scrambled is not too sure on that, but it certainly was a dangerous move. Dragons then they knock on a little bit after that, and Leinster breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, because Dragons started much the better of the two teams. Handling certainly a lot better, and again their attacking shape better. Leinster did improve in the second half. Leinster then win a penalty at the scrum, and it's Cian Healy breaking the Leinster appearance record, and he gets all the pats on the back from that one. Jamie Osborne then kicks a great 50-22 after just a sloppy clearance from the Dragons, just kind of booted it down the middle, with no real thinking behind what they were doing. Maybe just under a little bit of pressure, but they weren't under pressure in terms of like time for the kick. Could have certainly picked the spot a bit better. Then Leinster get pinged for obstruction at the line out. Brian Deaney the guilty party, and it's the penalty that, like Leinster and other Irish provinces, and even the Irish team as well, give away a lot. It's where the lifter goes in behind the catcher before the maul is formed, and it's just given as obstruction. Another penalty then allows Dragons to kick for the post, but it's a poor kick from Lloyd Evans, and he basically used up the entire shot clock, and I think at the end he just kind of rushed it and never connected with it properly at all. Didn't even threaten the posts. We then have a TMO review for a high hit from Coleman and Clarkson. He's upright, it's head on head, but there is mitigation because Clarkson is driven into him by another tackler. So it's a yellow card, and it seemed like a good call, honestly. Given the mitigation, I don't think you could say that was a red card, but certainly was dangerous enough for a yellow. And Coleman actually, while he was off as well, had to go for an HIA. So I think Yendel came on for him for a while, when the 10 minutes were up. Leinster then go up the line from that penalty. Dragons do well to disrupt the maul. I thought that they did really well actually disrupting that Leinster maul for most of the night. Leinster looked to spread it from there. They go wide. It's a little bit scrappy, but Ross Byrne, he gets the loose ball, and then gets a detector. He offloads to Jimmy O'Brien, and O'Brien puts Conan over to score. Conversions actually missed, and it's 5 points to 0. Leinster then, get another chance to kick up the line into 22, and this time Martinez is pinged for no clear release. Clarkson, though, gets pinged for exactly the same obstruction penalty that we talked about earlier, as in the setup of the maul, and just stupid stuff that. The annoying thing is, you would think, obviously the coaches are saying to the players, stop giving away this penalty, but they keep on doing it. So, it's, I don't know really what you can do to stop them doing it, because it's just happening so often. From here then, another chance for Lloyd Evans to kick for the post. Leinster pinged for holding on, and he makes it 5 points to 3. And Dragons really in the game at this stage. Dragons then, said looking the better team with the ball in hand. Dyer was very dangerous, I felt. He's a very pacey player, but also a very elusive runner, and the Dragons were doing well to get him into space. But I thought Leinster, although there were a few times where they really had to scramble, tap tackles, as we talked about, and just about getting back there, they still did well. I think to marshal them and not give them any real big chances. Coleman, though, pinged for not rolling away, or sorry, he He did roll, but he rolled into the 9, and that's what got pinged for. Leinster go to the corner, and it's coming up to the break. They maul it close to the line. They've got penalty advantage because Ryan was taken out in the air, but they don't need it because they go back out wide, and Byrne sells a bit of a dummy and stretches out to score. Conversion is missed again, and it's 10 points to 3. Then we still have time, for Lloyd to slot a penalty from in front, and this is a crock roll by Healy that gave it away, and it was 10 points to 6 at half time. In the second half, then Leinster starting to ramp things up a little bit. Good hit from Deegan, halts the Dragons' attack. Dragons again trying to get out there and go wide, but they hadn't really committed the Leinster defence. Deegan's hit causes the turnover, and then later in the move, then he carries well to get them into the 22, and then we come back for a penalty for not rolling away. Dragons then halt them all as Leinster go up the line, and Leinster decided they're going to go to 1-out carries. They got that line under siege, and Deegan goes over. We have a Timo review on field at the try. Lloyd Evans looks like he might have got his arm under the ball, but they check a few angles, and Timo says he's happy that the ball was down and there's not enough conclusive evidence to turn over the on-field decision. So the try stands. Byrne converts this one at 17 points to 6, and first time really in the game, there's a bit of daylight between the teams on the scoreboard. Dragons then win a scrum penalty. Slimani driving in on the hooker, and that allows them to have a line out in the 22. Leinster though disrupt and drive them back to the edge of the 22, and then out of the 22 eventually, and kind of move leads to nothing. Then Leinster kick downfield. Lyon Evans thought did really well to prevent the 50-22 from Byrne, and Leinster just looking for that field position for the bonus point try. They got 3 in the bag at that stage, and then you see Leinster, the likes of Josh van der Fleer and Fintan Gunn coming on from the bench, and McCarthy as well, really did inject some pace into Leinster's play, and then Deegan just continued making good ground out on those tram lines, and really good carries as well into traffic. We then have a Timo review for a high hit on Van der Fleer. It's just a penalty, so Leinster decided to go to the corner from another penalty because they had two to choose from, and that one was further up the field. They secured the line out, and then Joe McCarthy, he crashes over to score in the corner for that bonus point try. Ross Byrne converts from out wide, and it's 24 points to 6. Leinster then pounding away at the line again, looking to add scores with the Dragons tiring. We come back for a 5-meter scrum, but then the scrum never happens because Timo, comes in. We have a review of a possible try, and as Leinster were on that line, there were a couple of times when they went close, and we find out that Larmer actually got the ball down onto the line. Conversions missed, and it's 29 points to 6. Larmer then is off for King, I think came on for him, and Leinster on top in the scrums managed to push Dragons off their own ball. Certainly much better in the scrums from Leinster than last week's performance. They then steal a Dragons line out because after they pushed the Dragons off the ball, they managed to throw the ball straight into touch. Dragons then not offering much in attack, but they are disrupting Leinster and denying them easy scores in the closing minutes. But they do get, it wasn't an easy score, they had to work for it, but they do get a final score. Harry Byrne gives a nice long pass after good work from Gunn, and then King goes over unopposed in the corner. Conversion missed, full time is 34 points to 6. So 6 tries for Leinster and a bonus point, but it was a lot closer on the field than that scoreboard would tell you. Now let's have a quick look at the stats before we talk about each of the teams. So we're going to start on just on attack. So try scored, six tries to 0 for Leinster. So obviously definitely winning that stat. 58% possession to 42 for them as well. 10 clean breaks to 2. So you can see Dragons as I said, faded kind of in that second half, and there was a defensive shift. Man, really, defenders beaten then 20-8. So again, Leinster not firing on all cylinders, but certainly, given the second half performance, especially being the more dangerous of the two teams, even though Dragons did start brightly. Offloads then 14-5, and Leinster, a lot of the offloads were decent ones. They were getting, offloading at the tackle. They had a lot as well where, a ruck was forming, and the player that was tackled offloaded off the ground just to keep the pace up rather than waiting for someone to come and retrieve the ball. And, that meant that the Dragons' defence wasn't as set as maybe, they would want it to be. Onto defence then. Territory exactly the same as possession, 58-42. Number of tackles, 113 for Leinster and 157 for Dragons. So even though Leinster had a lot more of the ball, Dragons, they did obviously make more tackles, but not hugely more tackles given, how much ball Leinster had. Missed tackles though, only 8 from Leinster and 20 for the Dragons. And 93% tackle success for Leinster is a really brilliant number, because we're used to seeing them at the low 80s from last year. Dragons at 89 is a very respectable performance, honestly, defensively in the URC. You expect kind of the average to be around that kind of 87, maybe up to 88. So anything over that, you're doing pretty well on defense, and especially when you think that, they did obviously concede 6 tries, so there were a few tackles that weren't made, but still, other than for that defensive effort, it could have been a lot more for Leinster's. Turnover 1, then it just shows as well that defensive effort from them. 8 for Leinster, but 9 for the Dragons. They did really well, I felt, at the breakdown, getting in there, getting over the ball and turning it over, especially in that first half. Kicking then, kicks retained, 6 for Leinster, 5 for the Dragons. Very competitive in the air, honestly, and some really good kicks going up as well. Then kicking success, again, it's a nothing stat. I've never seen it other than 0-0 on that. So, please, URC, whoever does your stats, either put in the stats or remove them, because there's no point in having it in there when there's nothing really coming from it. Penalties then, 11 penalties conceded by Leinster and 10 by the Dragons. So, on another day, conceding more penalties, Leinster could have been, under a bit of pressure. They were under pressure at times, but I mean, on the scoreboard as well. So, again, credit to the Dragons for the performance in putting so much pressure on Leinster as well. We have a quick look at the player stats. We won't show them up on screen because, honestly, putting these slides or the titles together, they're called, for these stats can be a real time consuming thing. I haven't actually done it yet, when I'm speaking, but I know putting those 3 ones that you just see now for the game stats is going to take me probably 30 minutes. It shouldn't take 30 minutes, but the program that I put it up on will take 30 minutes to render each of those slides. All right, so in terms of successful carries, Jack Conan doing really well for Leinster with 6, 4 for Harry Wilson for Dragons. That's pretty decent from him, especially in a losing team. And then clean breaks, 3 for Jimmy O'Brien. We didn't mention him, too much in the game, but he had a solid game. He's always thereabouts, right? And I'd like to see him kind of, getting a few more tries though this season. Last week I thought he was really good. Would have been nice to see him get a try tonight, but himself and Larmour, they really only had the one chance that Larmour come up with for his try. Then for Dragons, Ewan Rosser, who I felt, he had 1 clean break. Ty did well, having to fill in a full back at short notice as well. Thought he was pretty decent. And you can see it on defenders beaten, Jimmy O'Brien, 6 for Leinster. Again, a good shift from him, and 3 from Rosser. So, a bit of a standout in that Dragons backline. Meters made then, Jamie Osborne, the Leinster fullback, 107 metres, and Harry Wilson, 49. So Wilson and Ross are doing pretty well for the Dragons. And then offloads, 4 from Jack Conan. That's just crazy. And then 2 for Roster as well. In terms of defence then, tackles made, Jack Conan with 13. Big shift from him, all around. And then Brodie Coughlin, 18 for the Dragons, top tackler on the pitch. Turnovers 1 then. It was 2 for Gus McCarthy and 2 for Shane Lewis Hughes as well for the Dragons. So, Dragons had a lot of good poachers though. And then, tackle success we won't go into because 100% for it's Ross Byrne and Ben Carter. They didn't make that many tackles, I don't think, in the game. But those are the stats. Let's talk about the teams themselves now. So Dragons, we saw a lot more fight from them in the opening 2 games, in this game and that win against the Ospreys as well, than they showed in any performance last season. So we're finally, I think, beginning to see some progress from them under Di Flanagan. As I said, the attack was looking sharp. They were looking dangerous. They know who their danger men and they're doing well to get the ball to them in space as well. And then defensively as well, they look a much better unit. And then, even just the fight in the team, really is, something very positive from them. They're not going to, I may eat my words later on in the season, but I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but they're certainly going to be a lot better and probably higher up the table, certainly with more match points than they did last year. And if that continues next year, then they could be in for a shout for the playoff places. But the season is young, and if they continue playing like this and they pick up a few wins away from home and then go on a bit of a run at home, it's possible for them to make those playoffs. It's so early in the season, you can't write anybody off. And certainly on the 2 performances, they don't look like the team that were fighting against Zebre, to avoid the wooden spoon last year. Leinster, not at their best, certainly had to work hard. But, again, credit to Dragons for making them do that. Midfield, I thought of Turner and Tector went well. Deegan was outstanding. Conan and Healing, very good. Byrne at 10 as well. Ryan's performance, so far, in the opening 2 games, honestly, James Ryan, been a little underwhelming. Bench, though, really lifted the performance. The 2 wingers as well, O'Brien and Larmer thought did well. Jamie Osborne, a fullback too, again, as a collective, it necessarily wasn't their best performance, but you could see there's a lot of players still, kind of ticking away individually, doing some good stuff. Still lots to work on for them, but it's maximum points from the first 2 rounds. And, as a Leinster fan, I'm certainly happy with that. And I think the coaches will be happy with that too. But the thing, I think, with Leinster is that we've seen a lot of turnover in the players, and it's about trying to, get the balance of that right all through the season and getting to the point where, when they're going to go down to South Africa, where they're going to be key games in terms of having to pick something up to be in a good position going into the playoffs, that they've got to get that balance right, I think, in terms of who actually goes on that as well. And that, I know it's a long way away, but it's important because the way they're doing it at the moment seems decent, because they've got, some frontline players, some really good players from the academy as well in there, and some players in between too. So they've got to be able to keep that blend going all the way. And when Champions Cup comes along, they find it harder for that, because obviously a lot of Champions Cup players then are rested for URC games. So we'll have to see how they go for that. But setting out their stall pretty well in terms of that so far. But, again, it's another game where, I think both teams come out of it with credit, and from the entire first round of games, there was no team really that you could look at and say that that they didn't put in a decent effort in the game, whether they won or not. And again, out of this one, I think both teams definitely come out with some credit. So again, the season is looking really good and really tasty, and I just want more of it.